Okay, welcome everybody.
Yes, welcome to our huddle.
Good to see a lot of familiar faces. We have reason to believe we might have some new folks in tonight. If you want to raise your hand or wave if you're new, that'd be great. You don't have to. You can go ahead and put your name and where you are and any organizational affiliation, if you like, into the chat to introduce yourself. So I think we all know the drill. We're doing this in a meeting format, which we can see everybody on the screens. If you want to speak, please use the raise hand function, because if you try to wave at us, we can't see everybody because there's 2 or 3 screens of people. So please just use the raise hand function, and then that helps us call on people in the order that they raise their hand too.
Okay.
So because we think we might have some new folks, I'm just going to take a minute to explain that Retake Our Democracy supports activists across the state of New Mexico, particularly just before and during the legislative session. And if you sign up for our legislative alerts at our website, the website is retakeourdemocracy.org. I think that's pretty easy to remember. If you sign up for the alerts, you will get, maybe not daily, but it can be up to daily during the session, information about the bills that we're supporting that are being heard by either in the House or the Senate. And we'll give you regular updates about the status of those bills, what the votes were, all that kind of stuff. So, and we also provide you with speaking points so that if you like to, you can offer public comment at the hearings, mostly in favor. We've got only so far one bill, and that's hydrogen production that we're going to oppose. So it's a good way to get educated about the issues and to learn how the legislature works in New Mexico. And so we're glad you're here. We're glad all of you are here, but especially if you're new folks. And if you have any questions, you can always email us at retakeresponse@gmail.com. Yeah, I'll put that in the chat.
And throughout this session, we'll use the term bill, but really what we're talking about is potential bills. In other words, bills that will be, concepts that will become bills or are being developed into bills as we speak. Yesterday was the first day that bills could be introduced, and the House has about 10 bills that have been introduced. The Senate has somewhat more, and we're tracking those, but really all we're looking for are the bills that we know we want to support. We're not looking for new stuff that looks interesting.
Simply because we don't have the bandwidth to do that.
Okay.
I can hear a little bit of background noise. So if you forgot to do so, can you go ahead and mute? And then, if you need to speak, raise your hand and then you can unmute and speak.
That's the way it works. Okay. So is it my turn to talk about the PRC appointments?
Sure. Well, let's just say briefly, we're going to talk mostly about bills tonight and maybe some slightly different strategy for this year. Nothing big. Paul wants to talk about the PRC appointments that were made the other day by the governor. And then we've just got a few miscellaneous things at the end. And if any of you have anything to add, please raise your hand. And if you have questions, raise your hand. If you have information about any of the bills we're talking about, we would like to get your input on that. Okay. Input.
Okay, so as you got, I'm sure all of you know about the governor's appointments. The most glaring thing that I noticed was that by far the most qualified person was not appointed. That's Carolyn Glick. She was a DTS from Santa Fe and had 16 years as a PRC hearing examiner. And during those years, she had a habit of holding whoever was coming for them to the fire. And I don't think that the governor wants any of her initiatives, scrutinized and Glick scrutinized. So she was not appointed.
Sorry.
And but there was one good appointment, at least we hope, Gabriel Aguilera, who has 16 years as a FERC, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission staff person. So he's very familiar with regulation of energy. And he, since 2007, has been the senior policy advisor for the Commission's Office of Energy Market Regulation for the Western region. So he is not only aware of what's going on in New Mexico, but he's aware of what's going on in our neighboring states. And I read through all of the questionnaires that were completed by candidates, and his was by far the most thorough. He definitely understands how a commission works. So it's a good.
So that's the good news.
That's the good news. The rest is bad news. Some of it very bad news. Patrick O'Connell, a Democrat from Bernalillo County, he has 20 years of experience in the utility and energy industry. Unfortunately, 12 of it was as an executive at P&M, and 8 of it was as an executive with New Mexico Gas Company. And if that weren't bad enough, he actually testified during the Avangrid hearing in support of the merger. And he has said he will not necessarily recuse himself if that issue is raised again. So that's a non-starter. We've got to get that guy out. The other person is just
well, and I think we should say one of the reasons we're talking about this is these 3 people still have to be confirmed by Senate rules.
We think it goes to Senate rules first and then to the Senate floor, or maybe just to Senate rules.
So if enough people speak up, maybe they won't approve all 3. We're not really sure. I don't know if that's ever happened.
Well, then we've never done this before.
Or not on this, not on the PRC. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, so the other candidate is Brian Moore, whose major experience is managing a large grocery chain. Grocery stores are not regulated by the PRC. He does have 18 years of political experience as a GOP legislator and as Susana Martinez's chief of staff. And if that doesn't make your hair curl, I don't know.
Or at least make you wonder.
And in that context, one of the primary reasons put out there for doing this by appointment was to depoliticize the PRC and their actions. And you don't do that by appointing a lifelong 20-year politician.
And you don't depoliticize something by giving the governor the power to appoint people. Well, that just makes it even more political, obviously.
But what's more is he demonstrated in the questionnaire that he really has no understanding of what the PRC is about. And he didn't even take any time to do any research. Like, one of the questions is, what do you know about how neighboring states regulate their utilities? And he basically said he had no idea, but that he understood Texas had problems and Colorado regulatory process was largely without drama. And so that's their big qualifications for him. And so we will be putting out information shortly about, once we know whether it's going to the Rules Committee or straight to the floor, we'll send out information and encourage you to start contacting your legislators about senators, about senators, no House reps, about, like, at least eliminating O'Connell, or not approving O'Connell. So that's that. Any questions about that?
Okay.
While we're disappointed, I can't imagine anybody being really surprised. We all kind of knew that when they passed this thing, that was what was going to follow.
Well, and we kind of assumed she was going to appoint, merger friendly people. Yeah, Greg.
What are the odds of Patrick being shot down in the Senate?
We don't know.
No, I've never been on this territory. If you've ever been to a Senate Rules Committee interview of a nominee,
it's usually a love fest, right?
Yeah, the questions are like, which do you like, green or red? Where's your favorite green chili cheeseburger? And how do you like living in New Mexico? It's just nonsense. And, but this may have more scrutiny because this
hope
is
so.
very high profile. So, but I have no idea what the odds are. I should have, I wanted to look at the rules committee composition, but it's going to change because they're removing Ivy Soto from rules.
Mhm.
So we'll see.
Yeah, we won't know what this year's committees look like until it's often like the end of the first week. They know, but they don't put the information out until late in the first week. So we won't know how those committees have changed until then. All right, so
Next,
let's move on to, we're going to talk about,
we're going to ask Angela to
yeah, we
talk
want
a
to,
little bit about
Angela
public
Merkert is
banking.
here from AFLEP. So tell us, Angela, what happened or what's happening with the public banking bill.
You have to unmute yourself.
She's doing it.
Thank you, and Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year.
Where we are with the public bank and our organization is Alliance for Local Economic Prosperity. We realized as we were coming through the hearings this summer that we had a significant barrier with the financial folks, with the appropriations committees, that Representative Lundstrom and Senator Munoz were just adamantly opposed to the bank. And as we began working with a lobbyist, we identified how we could step back and build up a stronger strategy for achieving the bill by actually focusing this session on supporting our allies and raising the visibility on local economic prosperity. So what we've done is we have been in contact with our allies and asked them what their priorities are in the upcoming legislation. And we are going to work with strong advocacy and endorsement and support of key pieces of legislation that will foster what our overall goal has been, which is really how do we strengthen small business development? How do we strengthen rural community development? How do we strengthen business development in neighborhoods of the larger cities like Albuquerque, Santa Fe, Las Cruces that are without support and access to financial lending support, and at the same time nurture more of expand the relationships that we have with legislators, broaden and deepen them, and also with their constituents. And our outreach will continue very strongly. And we think that there's going to be such a flurry of hands out for all good reasons in going into this session because of another windfall revenue year for the state. And we're going to position ourselves for getting the bill in next year. We are taking other steps. We have applications in to join several of the economic development committees. We want to expand our voice and influence there. We have so much data and so much information to share in the context of those bodies. We also have deepened the work on our financial plan for the first 7 years of the bank, and it is now being audited by a nonpartisan group outside of our organization. And we're going to share those findings with both agencies like the NMFA and the Economic Development Department, as well as legislators. So we are taking steps to broaden and deepen both the education of legislators and also get past this whole notion of, well, we've got a windfall, we don't need the money, and we're showing that the need is still there, and it's going to be there even more so as we look into the future with less and less of the oil and gas revenue. So, we know significant change takes time, and we took a deep breath and said, this is the approach we're going to take.
Okay, Angela, so keep us posted on the things that you're looking at to support, and we'll see what we can do.
Right. and
We
so
definitely will, and we'll be looking at how we can work in parallel with groups like Retake too. And if any of you on the call are, and I know you are because I recognize some of your names, we are working with groups that, like, we're members of the Food and Agriculture Policy Council and groups like that, but and sustainable communities. But let us know, be in touch with me. I'll put my email address in the chat, and we'll talk.
Okay.
Well, and like you said, it's a long process because it's a transformational change for
Right.
the state. So I would just say to everyone, just because they're not going to introduce a bill this year doesn't mean you can't be out there talking about public banking and the value of public banking. And when you're talking to your legislators, if you get appointments with them, or just, you can mention it, even though the bill's not going to be in there, because it is going to take a while for people to get used to the idea.
Thank you for mentioning that. And I think that that's where we want to put the context of the bank is our focus is on developing stronger local economic prosperity, and the bank is a tool to do that. And we haven't done that well especially with small business development. And that's frankly where most of our jobs are, but the state mostly touts the jobs they're creating in mid-sized and large businesses. And we're looking at what can be done in other development as well. So that's where the focus is now.
One last quick question. So are you going to be developing some talking points about
Yes.
supporting local economic prosperity, and so that people can sort of change their focus in the way they talk to legislators and others?
Yes, we
Okay.
have those, and I'd be glad to share those with everybody.
Okay, great.
Okay.
And then we can turn those around and get them out to everybody.
And we're still going to be endorsing and supporting in hearings those bills. We'll be active and we'll be present. We're just not going to tout only the public bank. I do want to make one more comment. We have a state treasurer who has just been sworn in, Laura Montoya, who is interested in and supportive of a public bank. So we don't have the resistance that we had before in that position. And I think that's going to be help to become a game changer too.
Okay.
That's great. Yeah, she's wonderful. We really like her.
Well, thank you,
Thank you.
Angela.
Yeah,
Thank
so we're
you
gonna.
for this opportunity to share with you.
Okay.
Oh, you're very welcome. Yeah, we're going to move forward and talk just a little bit about a slight change to, or in addition to, the strategy for this year's session. Paul?
Yeah. Well, Roxanne has always said that by the time the legislators get to their committee hearings, they've probably made up their minds or are strongly predisposed one way or the other. And so given that we even still now don't know whether there's going to be any kind of remote public comment via Zoom, they're going to decide that at Legislative Council on January 16th, I'm told. But even if you could make public comment from your couch, we think that the more effective strategy is to reach out to your legislators now and next week and the week after that, before they get into session, and just talk to them about bills you support and use our site. And we're going to go through
We're going to share screen and we'll
share a screen and kind of show you how to kind of use our site to guide or support your efforts to communicate with legislators.
Right. So, as much as you can in the next couple of weeks, start reaching out. And in this case, we're not talking about committee members because committee assignments haven't been finalized yet, and they won't be for at least a couple weeks. But your own House member and your senator. So that's pretty simple. That's 2 people that you can reach out to and let them know which bills you're urging them to support or oppose this year.
Share screen.
Yeah. Oh, and we also want, if you are a writer and like to write letters to the editor, we're hoping that you can, is that what we want?
No.
Sorry. Oops, we're trying to find the, this happened before.
Right, back out from shared screen,
Okay.
and then just go back and open that page. That page needs to be open. It's not open.
Okay, hold on a second. You got to, okay,
The other one.
we're here.
No. The other.
Okay. Bear with us.
Okay,
All right. Okay.
now we go back in and share screen.
All right. We thought we had this ready to go here, but doesn't want to cooperate.
There we
Okay.
go.
All right. So in the past, we've had a little trouble with people being able to see the share screen. So does it look okay to everybody? Thumbs up. Okay, good. Yeah, somebody
We
said,
tested it and it seemed fine here.
yeah,
but-
last time somebody said over the gray boxes that were blocking out part of the page. So, okay, yeah, you should be able to see a few people's faces on the right if you're in gallery view, but you should have a pretty good view of this page. This is our NM legislation page on the Retake Our Democracy site.
So show over where they can
What?
get to it. Just that if you click on that right there in the
Right.
home page, when you get to our home page,
Yeah, I think that's
you'll
pretty
land on
obvious.
this page.
Yeah. Fairly obvious.
And now just scroll through so they can get a sense of what's here.
Well, I was going to talk about hearing observers later, but I'll just say quickly, thank you so much to the 10 people who have signed up so far. We do need probably 13, 14, 15 people to get everything covered. So if you're thinking about doing it, I hope you do. You can go to that first link to learn more and sign up.
And you do not have to go to the Roundhouse to do this because they will be broadcasting on webcast.
You can take notes via the webcast. Yeah,
Yeah,
you don't
yeah.
have to go there. And if there's no, you don't have to worry about Zoom. The only reason you would need to get on Zoom is if you wanted to offer public comment.
If they're going to let that happen.
Right. We don't even know if that's going to happen.
And the other thing I
So-
was going to say about that is, like what happens often, and this has been discouraging for observers, is, especially as the session goes on, especially in the Senate committees can be scheduled for 2 and start at 7. And
Yeah.
that's a big problem for people who
Well,
are trying to do this.
You're not a
And
very
so-
good salesperson.
But wait,
here.
I'm about to. You don't have to be there listening to it live. They record it and the recording is available within minutes after the hearing is over. So the next morning, go in and have some coffee and watch the hearing and take your notes then. We
Right.
don't need it within the minute that.
No, we usually like to get it within
day or
24
so.
hours or so, 36 hours, just because we need to like to know how the votes went and that kind of thing. But anyway, you can find all the legislative alerts that have been sent out in the last year and are going to be sent out at the second link. If you missed one, the third is to join the huddles. You already know how to do that. The fourth one is a guide to writing letters. Do you want me to click on that, Paul?
yeah.
Okay. Because we would really feel like, speaking of public education, like Angela was talking about getting word out about public banking and dispelling the misunderstandings. Writing letters to the editor is a good way to do that.
And legislators look at that, and if they see a lot of letters to the editor about local choice energy or health security, they're going to notice that and they're going to go, oh, my constituents really support this.
I mean, and usually these letters are 150 to 250 words, right? I mean,
Right.
it doesn't really take much time, but this page gives you some tips about writing letters. We're not going to go through the page. We just want you to know it's here. There are, I think, 3 or 4 sample letters. Most of them are topically out of date now, but they're just examples of a few different letters and a little bit longer one at the end there from Paul. And then there's media outlets underneath that, and there are live links to all of the major newspapers in the state, and then a few minor ones too. And we tried to cover most corners of the state here.
And
So
it
those
also
are all-
tells you like how many words and how to submit. So it
Right.
makes it as easy as possible. And you can see as you get down further on the page, we get into some pretty small publications.
The El Defensor Chieftain in Socorro. Wow, that's an interesting one. Yeah, in some cases, they don't have information posted. It's a pretty small paper, but they do have an email to an editor, and you can just email that person and ask them. But I'm guessing most people on this call are in Santa Fe, Albuquerque, Las Cruces, Taos. Not to diminish anybody else from other places. We're really glad you're here because we need people from other parts of the state.
Okay, so let's go back to the legislation page.
So that's available for you there on NM legislation. And then we have, I know a lot of you have looked at this page already. These are basically the bills we know we will support or oppose so far. And some of these we know are coming. Some we're still not sure if they're gonna be introduced, right?
Right, well, we just found out about one that won't be introduced.
Right, like
But we
public
had,
banking.
found out before, so we had removed it.
So I think what we want to do right now is we're gonna just land on, highlight 2 or 3 of these and show you where the resources are. So you can start looking at this stuff. We don't have none of these bills have been introduced yet, right? As
Right.
far as we know, they just started pre-filing yesterday. But because they've been introduced in the past, we do have some resource materials for some of these.
Or
that-
we've been working with.
Right, so you can use them for talking points or for your emails to your House and Senate members.
Let's start with health security.
Okay. So health security, well, this just goes to their website,
Right.
I think.
In all cases, when you click, I think on all cases now, we worked on this today. The link to more information will take you either to the sponsor of the bills page or something we did. And
Yeah.
over the next week or two, we tried to recruit folks to help us with research and writing, and nobody stepped up. So it's Roxanne and I, and it may take us a little longer than we would like.
Well, and we
But-
don't actually write the bill summaries / talking points until the bills have been introduced, because we need to get specifics about those bills in order to do that. Excuse me, I was cutting hot peppers earlier and I just rubbed my eye. So, okay, so this is just an example. This takes you to the HSA website, so you can get more information about what it is. But Paul, I think what you want to say about what's happening this year with
That's what I wanted to
this.
say.
Okay.
Exactly. There's going to be a bill introduced. It will be to direct the legislature to ask the Health and Human Service Committee to appoint people to an expert panel who would then guide the design process. They want to get it out of the office, the superintendent of insurance's grip. And there will be junior bill money again that will be, and we'll have language for how to talk to your legislators about this, because they need to continue to the design process. And the design process, you know, it sounds boring, but what they're taking a look at are, for example, how the Health Security Act could rescue rural health and rural hospitals, and could control pharmaceutical costs. So there's all these health policy issues and regulations that the design process is structured to really study and find out how to address those things and how to achieve those kinds of outcomes. And then it'll get all rolled up into one big package, and that'll be the Health Security Act. But in the meantime, what they find in the design process can be used to improve the the existing health system. And I would encourage anyone who wants to find out more about the Health Security Act at 10:30 on Saturday morning. They're hosting a Q&A and kind of
Via Zoom.
via
right?
Zoom, yes.
Where can
And
they get information?
there will be information on our website later today or tomorrow.
Where? Where?
Under actions and events, I
Or do
guess.
you want to just put it here where it says health security?
Well,
Okay,
I-
actions and events. We'll send you a link to that HSA Zoom on Saturday morning. And it'll be up there by tomorrow morning. I'm sorry, it's not up right now. Okay, move
All right, moving
next.
right along.
Local choice energy is going to be a big one this year.
And that's one I've been working on the hardest. Weekly, sometimes twice weekly coalition meetings with representatives from Renewable Taos, the Land Office, Retake, and Yucca, New Energy Economy, and Earth Care are the primary regulars.
They're right, are all listed right there in
Oh,
that
right,
paragraph,
right.
but you remembered them.
Well, I can't read them from here.
So we don't have talking points on this yet, but this link will take you to Public Power New Mexico's website. There's a lot of information here, but I've sent it directly to the page on local choice energy. Explains what it is in pretty concise language. And then if you go down, scroll down a little bit, they have a one pager that you can download, you can print out or whatever you want. And you can use that for talking points when you write to your legislator. And I mean, this is a really important,
This is a
bill.
really important bill, especially given the appointments to the PRC
right?
and the likelihood of PNM getting its way. This is a way to free communities from PNM. Basically, you can, a jurisdiction, a county, a city, or a tribe, Pueblo, can organize their community if they approve of local, if this bill is passed, they can do this. If this bill isn't passed, communities can't do this. The only possibility they have for creating alternative energy is to go through a process that involves municipalizing the city. And that involves having to do what is it called? Eminent domain process, which was tried in Boulder and wound up taking 10 years before they gave up.
I'm glad you raised your hand, Jay, because I was going to ask you if you had anything to add.
Yeah, two things. First is if you're already served by a PNM or El Paso Electric, you can't municipalize. There is no eminent domain for municipalizing in New Mexico. You can do that maybe in Colorado. Obviously, it's hard, but you can't do it in New Mexico. Las Cruces tried, failure, can't do it. That's the first thing. Second thing is there's been quite a few studies, not specifically on New Mexico, but on Colorado and a few other states where if like in Colorado, this study said if they went to fully 100% renewables by 2030, they'd be saving our ratepayers hundreds of millions of dollars a year. So PNM's delays and El Paso Electric's delays on this is costing every New Mexican a lot of money, and it's going to be obviously compounded over the next bunch of years. So it's super important that we break control from the utilities like El Paso Electric and PNM.
They're going to fight tooth and nail because that's
Well.
millions of dollars out of their pockets, or not out of our pockets that they would have
Right.
had.
Right,
Yeah.
and just keep in mind, like there was pennies coming out of the pocket with community solar, and they fought that tooth and nail. So this is going to be a much bigger fight for them. And just to keep in mind, everybody, the New Mexico State Legislature determines gave the monopoly powers to PNM and El Paso Electric. They can take it away just as easily as giving it to them. There's absolutely nothing standing in their way except their own pocketbooks, basically, unfortunately. So.
Well, and
Their own lobbyists.
there's a very good committee involved in this, and they're out doing education in the community and with legislators. And the materials that are on Public Power New Mexico are quite good. So the link that we've sent you to will help you get up to speed on that.
Yeah.
What's
Okay.
next?
You want to talk modernizing the legislature? And I know we've talked a little bit about some of these bills before, but we just want to show you the resources that are up here. Some of these resources are new on this page, so you'll know where to go once you get ready to email your legislator. So modernizing the legislature, that includes paid staff, that includes paying legislators, and it also includes changing the length of sessions
Yeah,
too.
let me cover that.
Okay,
Uh,
but this link will take you to a Common Cause page that has a lot of info about modernizing the New Mexico legislature. So we, like we said, we don't have talking points yet because we haven't seen the bill, but this is a good place to go if you want a good summary of what modernizing the legislature is about.
And what there will be introduced are two resolutions, or maybe a joint resolution, that basically would put on the ballot that the legislature would create an independent council or commission to set salaries for legislators. That would be one resolution. And then a second one would be to extend the session, because both of those require constitutional amendments and you don't want to put them together. And so the extending the legislative sessions would be extending the 30-day session to 60 days and having a 5-day break in the middle. I don't think it extends the 60-day session, but I could be wrong.
That's not a whole lot more. That's only 30 days extra every 2 years.
Right. But
Hmm.
it's not doing
It's
anything.
better than nothing.
30-day session. And
Yeah.
I really like the idea. I hope they do it for both sessions of having a 5-day break in the middle. And that's what's being proposed, because that gives legislators who are being buried in information and misinformation an opportunity to step back and consult with their constituents and others they trust and get better information
And get some sleep.
and get some sleep. Yes. So that's the
Okay.
modernizing the legislature. And now we're going to talk just a little bit about the one bill we know we will be opposing, and that's the hydrogen.
Hydrogen production, yes.
And we had Jeremy Smet last week talked at
Got a little into the weeds.
longer than we had hoped about how he's sort of feeling like maybe we should just try and amend the bills because they're doing hydrogen development regardless of what happens in the legislature. But Retake is going to firmly oppose any bill.
Right, so this link will take you to the last thing that was put together. It's been slightly revised, but Jay was part of this. Jay and Dan Pritchard
Yes.
and Saraswati.
Khalsa.
Yeah. And I think it's a really good, it's not that long. It takes 2 pages on paper, tells you why hydrogen is not the answer, why carbon capture just doesn't work. Tells you
Details.
the details about it's not environmentally beneficial. It still produces emissions, and even green hydrogen takes tons of water that we just don't have. And, it's not economical. And then toward the end, it talks about what the alternatives we have and how much better they are. So I really encourage you to go here and read through this. I mean, this is heavily footnoted too, as you can see. So it's a good document.
And it's a good document to share with your legislators.
Right.
It's a source for developing your own speaking points, but it's something that a legislator should see. And what I would recommend is if you've got an opportunity to speak with him or her, send them this and say, I'd like to talk to you about it.
Or
And-
just send them a link, right? to
Right.
This page, yeah.
Right, a link to this page and say, I'd like to talk to you about it. And then that maybe they'll feel obliged to actually read it.
Yeah, I don't think we should assume that hydrogen is a lost cause. I mean, meaning that, it's just going to get pushed through no matter what, because I think there's a lot of opposition or at least skepticism among legislators because they just didn't have enough information about it last year. So this is an important one, I think, to talk to your legislators about and give them more information, tell them why you're
Just scroll down.
against it.
Can you scroll down just to show the rest, the audience, the attendees, what else is on this page? We're not going to read it, but
Yeah, green
all the
amendment,
bills. There's the State Public Bank.
radioactive waste, guaranteed basic income. We still don't know whether that's actually gonna,
Well, apparently it
Happen.
is, but
Okay.
it's pulling teeth to get information from Patricia Roybal Caballero.
well, she's a busy person. I
Yes.
wouldn't say pulling teeth, but then there are a number of areas that we think are, we're pretty sure are coming up. That's this bulleted list under, we are also examining, I don't know why there's a comma there. That's a mistake. But I'll just tell you quickly, I think one of the things that we are about to add more information about is some voting rights bills. And we got this information from the League of Women Voters. I think that's where Dick Mason is from. Yeah. There's going to be a Native American Voting Rights Act. He's saying it was buried in the omnibus voting bill last year, but he thinks it's gonna pop up again somewhere. We need to get more information. There's going to be a bill introduced about protecting election workers that will be similar to one from last year. That was SB 144. He says it's pretty technical, but it's important. Also, restoration of felons' right to vote is going to be brought up again, carried by Gail Chasey. So there'll be like a little voting rights package. As soon as we have more information, we'll put that up on the website for
And
you.
in some cases, like, you know, one of those bills may not make it to our top 10 list. And those are the bills that we're going to have one pagers on, and that we will be, you know, notifying you of hearings and so forth. So it's going to be on you in some cases. We're going to let you know about these bills and provide links to the bills and probably some analysis or summary. But
Brief.
but we're not going to track it, and we're not going to put them in alerts when they're in a hearing. So that'll also be on you. It's
Yeah.
just too much work.
Right. One of the things that I keep saying I'm going to do, I haven't done yet, is to provide a page that explains in not too much detail how to use the nmlegis.gov website and create a My Roundhouse account so that you can tag bills that you want to follow, even though they may not be on our list. And, you know, you don't get notified by email, but you can just go back to your list, and as soon as they know when committee hearings are coming up, they will post that and it pops up on your list of bills. Okay, I think we're ready to stop sharing, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
We're back.
Right.
And screen share worked okay for everybody?
Looked like it did. Yeah.
All right, a lot of thumbs up. That's good.
Okay. So, you know, if you have anything to add or question, please feel free to raise your hand. We've got 15 minutes left.
Do you see any glaring gaps in the bills that were
Yeah. Any bills you know of
proposing
that we haven't
that
mentioned?
we're suggesting?
Wow. I guess we got it totally covered.
Marjorie has.
No,
Yeah. Marjorie, go ahead.
You got on mute.
She's doing, give people a second.
there we go. I'm really interested. It went by a little bit too fast and I hadn't read through the website before. But is there anything being done about housing costs and housing? Because in Taos, at least, that is the #1 issue for everyone. So
Yeah, we put housing reform on our list at the bottom, just those really short bullets, but we don't know yet. We're expecting, like, maybe last year, I think Andrea Romero and a couple others
And I
introduced.
texted her this morning to try and get information, but I didn't get anything.
Yeah,
back
as
yet.
soon as we find out, we will let you know. We'll put some information up on the website, but we just don't know
If
yet.
there's a really good housing bill, it will be among our top bills. Because I
Okay.
agree with you, it's just absolutely ridiculously important bill.
Mhm.
Thank
Okay,
you for that.
thanks, Marjorie. Marty?
Yeah, I know you interviewed Rachel Feldman about the professionalizing law enforcement bill that's going up. And did you decide not to support that or not to make it a priority?
Do we not have it on the
You do not.
website yet?
Nope.
Professionalism.
You
No, it's-
interviewed her on the radio.
Yeah. We have, Yeah, we have it on the secondary list, improving law enforcement training. And so we just haven't had a chance to, we need to.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Thanks.
Yeah, we need to just get the information together and get some more information on the page. We just, just so everybody knows, it's just Paul and I right now doing all this and updating the web pages and doing the blog and the alerts. So we don't work as quickly as we once did. Okay.
None of us does
Yeah,
more
thanks for
than us.
asking, Marty. Rich.
Yeah, I want to say I'm part of the Civil Legal Services Housing Group that we meet every couple of weeks. It's advocates and attorneys and for housing reform. And we've also have a small group that meets with Andrea Romero and Angelica Rubio. And they have a bill out, and but we haven't met with those two reps for a couple of months because I think what's going on is that they're trying to figure out how to get Joe Cervantes on board, because if they don't, they know what's going to happen. It's going to get stuck in his committee like it did last year and the year before. So I think that's the biggest thing that's going on. And it's probably why we're not hearing from Andrea or Angelica right now. And it doesn't bode well that we're not, because I don't know what it's going to take to get Cervantes on board, or at least to get him out of the way. So anyway,
Do you know what it would cover if it were going to happen?
yeah, I don't remember every detail about it, but some of what it does is it extends the deadlines for people to pay rent. So rather than having a 3-day notice, they would have an 11-day notice. And then they would still have the opportunity, if they don't even pay by then, before they're in court, to pay that rent. Because as it stands right now, you don't pay within 3 days, the landlord doesn't even have to accept it on day 4. And they can go to court. And so there are a number of deadlines like that that are being extended. And there's also provisions for anti-retaliation. It goes a ways to help and modifying the Owner-Resident Relations Act to level a playing field between tenants and landlords.
What about creating new housing, affordable housing?
I don't think that's about part. There may be one, again, a part of it that talks about having a council, a housing council that could be in position to do that, but that hasn't been a big part of the bill. I mean, there's also discussion about having repealing the current prohibition on rent control. There can't be rent control anywhere in New Mexico because of one provision in the statutes. And so that would have to be
similar to
repeated.
the bill that was introduced last year.
It is. It's
Okay.
quite similar to the bill. Yeah. And it takes out some of the more controversial things, like they're separating out the source of income discrimination. That makes it hard for people on Section 8 and other subsidy programs to rent. But they can't get it all in one package. They're hoping they can.
Right.
So
Well, last year, in terms of actual production and rehab and so on, they got the 27 million a year. Nancy Rodriguez got that. So that, I mean, that's a lot of housing, potentially not enough, but it still is a lot of money.
yeah.
Although there should I would be very surprised if it's somewhere in the vast amount of federal money coming into the state, there's not housing and climate related housing, like rehab, weatherization, that kind of stuff.
I think one of the things Rich just mentioned is that the bill is being stalled because you're trying to figure out how to get Cervantes on board.
Yeah.
And I think it would be a good full hour conversation about how to deal with the handful of legislators who think they're governor. That'd be George Munoz, Patty Lundstrom, and Joseph Cervantes. And they just feel like they can, if they don't like the bill, they can kill it, and they're in a position to kill it. And I just don't know what our levers are to avoid that. I mean, what health security has had to do the last 2 years to get their bill or their work going forward is just absurd.
Yeah, Sandy's noting that Mimi, Senate Pro Tem, put them in those positions, yeah.
One of the things that they're trying to do is market this as a way of helping the courts deal with eviction cases and other kinds of housing cases, in the hopes that Supreme Court justices will be on board and saying, yes, this does help the courts, and they'll convince Cervantes to get on board. But that was the idea several months ago. It doesn't sound like it's working yet, if it works.
Okay,
Okay,
thanks
you,
for that, Rich. Ray Ellen.
Hey, so I just have a bit of a devil's advocate question on the local choice energy public power bill. If we were to get that passed through the legislature, what are the chances the governor would ever sign it?
We don't really know. She signed the Community Solar Act, but you know, trying to get any information out of where the governor stands on almost anything, unless it's hydrogen or something she really supports, is very, very difficult. I mean, it's not like she just calls you up and says, tell me about this bill, and or anything like that, and or to legislators for the same purpose. So we can't know. But you know, if we don't pass it, we can't find out.
Yeah, is there some strategy we should be trying to formulate to figure that out? I mean,
the governor,
work
you
with
mean?
legislators to help figure that out? I don't know what the strategy would be, but it just seems like maybe that's something we should think about.
I think basically what the strategy would be to have Carrie Hamlin and Liz Stefanix, who probably do have access to the governor, one would hope, to meet with her. And Carrie, if any of you were on the Zoominar we had on public power and local choice energy, she just rocks. I mean, she totally gets
amazing.
it, and she's not bashful about putting it out there. So, I mean, if she got in the room with the governor, she'd at least make sure that the governor heard why she should do this. But,
Okay.
you know, I can't make excuses for this governor. I'm sorry.
So as soon as we learn what that strategy is.
Yes,
we will let you
we'll
know.
certainly share it with you, and we will want to make sure, but I don't know that, you know, an email from Retake Our Democracy is going to move Michelle Lujan Grisham at all. And so whenever we start to try and get our folks to contact her, and, you know, there's that platform on her homepage, we will be asking you to write as constituents, not as retake members.
Yeah, she's not our best
Thanks.
friend. Thanks, Ray Ellen.
Yeah.
Jeff.
Yeah, happy New Year, everybody. I just wanted to comment. I think one of the big silver line, the only silver lining probably in the COVID cloud in the last 2.5 years has been public testimony through Zoom. And it was disappointing, you know, to hear from you guys that may not happen. I immediately texted Brenda McKenna, who's my senator. She was assumed that there would be. She was very surprised to hear that there might not be. I'm just curious, the legislative council meeting on the 16th, what's the composition of that? And is there any understanding of the rationale for not having it? You know, it's obviously a huge mouthpiece for the public to take away. It's very disturbing.
Very.
They,
Well,
they
there's your
don't like
answer.
to be, they don't like to be seen being assholes.
Well, and I think there's they consider it a lot of work to get all those people on Zoom, to call on people for public comment. And I think they just feel like maybe they can't handle the level of public comment and that many hearings, because we're in a 60-day session instead of 30. Did they do it during the 60-day
Yes.
in 2021?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we don't really know. Well, Javier Martinez said there would be Zoom, right? So
He did.
and a couple legislators that we've talked to said there would, but then
Well, I spoke with Liz Stefanix, and she was emphatic
that what?
that it would not happen.
Oh.
That the problem was, if you've got a hearing at the Roundhouse, there's 50 people lined up to give comment, And if you do
In
it, if you
person.
do it remote and in person, you've got 50 people in the room and 250 people in queue to offer public comment, and they don't have the time to do that. And that's a legitimate point, but
So-
there's ways to work around that.
So that would be the difference, because even though they did Zoom for the last couple of years, it wasn't Zoom and in person. So yeah, that is more to handle.
Yeah, well, to me, that loops into the other issue, which is paying the legislators and having more money for support staff. If they could do something like that in an emergency 2.5 years ago, and I think as difficult as it was, it had a huge positive impact, I think, on the ability of democratizing things. It's just another great example of why we need the other bill to move forward as well, as far as I'm concerned.
Yep.
So we
We
will
agree.
try and get more information on who will be deciding this on the 16th, who will be the people in the room, and what is their
Maybe people,
rationale.
could people write to the legislative council?
I don't know. We'll see what we can
They may
do.
just not feel like they have the capacity, but it doesn't mean we can't push them to do it. Yeah. Jay, we got a couple minutes left. Jay.
Yeah, can we just be super clear here? If the rationale happens to be that there's too many people giving public comment and that's the reason not to do it, what the hell is that? Right? That means they don't really want to hear from us, right? That's what it means. They don't want to hear from us. We have to waste our time, go down there, spend all day waiting for them to get around to the time when we can actually make our public comment, if they even allow us to. So we have to do that instead of sitting at home and actually earning a living or doing whatever else we want to do.
Right. Well, and I'm sure they would probably say, well, we just don't have time for 200 people to give public comment,
Well, they don't want, means, right, which translation is they don't want to hear from us.
Yeah, I don't think that's a fair translation. I mean, I think it's a legitimate point that they run out of time every session. And if they have to listen to 250 comments on every bill or many bills, that's going to extend things. And so I don't think it's an illegitimate, but if you've got something that is engaging the public as well as that was, you don't shut it out. You don't shut it down. You figure out a way to make it work.
Yeah.
Well, see that the last part is the important part, Paul. The former is, again, complete excuse, complete I don't want to hear from people why they want this bill. Because it's honestly, they want to hear from the lobbyists who are paying who are helping them write the bills more than they actually want to hear
They'll
from
be
us.
there.
Right. And you live in Farmington, Las Cruces, Silver City,
Exactly.
I don't know, Raton. I mean, you can't be
So-
driving down here and
and
then maybe the meeting.
You know what? They're always asking for pros and cons. If you had, in theory, 300 people want to testify, if you got pros from 10 of those people and cons from 10, you're likely to cover a lot of the universe of pros and cons without hearing from the other 180 people. So I think it's a very poor argument to say, well, we just didn't have time to listen to everybody.
Yeah. And sorry, if I can just put another final point on it, it's how different is that from OCD having a hearing, having a meeting about drilling wells in Farmington or Hobbs or Las Cruces or wherever the hell it is in Santa Fe? How is that different? That's what they do. There's no public comment. You must be there in person. How is that any different?
Right. So we're right at 7 o'clock, but if you have a quick comment, Jennifer, go ahead. And thanks, Jeff, and thanks, Jay.
I would just say that in terms of all the hearings that I observed during, the Zoom testimony, that what would help is if more people who were just basically reiterating points that had already been made would just say, my stuff's already been covered and let it move on, that they'd be more amenable. And the large volume really was only happening for the super controversial ones anyway. So I think that there is ways to work around it. But if they go ahead and say we're not going to do that this year, I just remind everybody there's other ways to give your input. They all have email, they all have staff during the session to take a message from you and stuff like that. So don't just give up if that comes to pass.
Right. And you made me just think that about another thing that happened with those Zooms. At the very least, what they were doing is they were saying, putting up a little screen poll, are you for it or against it? You know, so at least they could see, oh, there's 200 people on here who are in favor of this,
And only
And-
3 of them are in favor of it.
and or 40 who are not, you know. So at the very least, they could do that if they don't feel like they don't have time for public comment.
And the other thing is, and some chairs do this, they ask groups to organize their 10 speakers. And I think that for the coalitions we're involved in, we'll try and do that, you know, like with public power, we want to make sure that the people on the coalition who have been involved, the best speakers we have are the ones that speak first, at least, you know, and I think that should apply for most of them. And then you're right, it does get repetitive after
Yep.
a while, and you also get comments that where someone clearly didn't do their homework, you know, and
Yeah.
that just wastes time.
So did you have another, something else to say, Jeff, or your hands just still up?
No, I'm sorry. I didn't take it down. I'm good.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody. We want to let you go. We're a couple minutes over. Sorry about that.
We'll be back next.
See you next week. I hope you can join us again next week. We'll have new information. We're digging around every day. So thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you all.
Happy New Year.
It's wine time.